The evening light stretched long across Dust River County, melting into hues of amber and violet as the sun sank behind the jagged Wyoming ridges. A cold wind poured down from the mountains, carrying the smell of sagebrush and the distant call of cattle. Settling in for the night, rancher Colton Reeves tugged his hat lower and nudged his chestnut mare, Willow, into a slow trot along the north fence line. Everything felt off lately. Too many gates left unlatched. Too many spooked cows staring at nothing. Too many tire tracks on a property only he had reason to drive across. He didn't trust coincidences, not out here, where every broken twig and disturbed patch of dirt told a story, and something had been telling him a story he didn't like. He was about to turn back toward the barn when he caught sight of a figure in the fading light, a slim silhouette near the old windmill, half hidden by tall grass. Lila Marston, her dark hair whipped around her face in the gusty wind, her coat clutched tight with both hands. She wasn't supposed to be here, this wasn't a shortcut to town, and she never wandered this far alone. That alone made Colton sit up straighter. "Lila!" he called as he rode closer. She jerked around, startled, her eyes wide with something that looked much deeper than surprise. Fear. Real, trembling fear. "Colton, stop!" she shouted, waving her hands. "Don't come any closer." He reined in Willow about 20 yards away, frowning. "Are you hurt?" No, but just don't," her voice cracked. "Don't look there." Instinct made him glance behind her anyway, and that was when he noticed the odd, metallic glint half buried in the dirt near the dead windmill. It wasn't scrap. It wasn't ranch equipment. The angle, the sheen, the precision edges, nothing about it belonged in a field. Lila stepped sideways, trying to block his view. "I said don't look there. Just turn around and go back to the house. You're shaking." Colton swung off Willow, boots crunching against the frost-stiff ground. "What's going on?" "Colton, please," she begged, grabbing his sleeve as he walked toward her. "You shouldn't be here. You weren't supposed to see this." "See what?" He nodded toward the thing behind her. "That?" Lila's breath came in short, sharp bursts. She looked over her shoulder as if expecting someone to materialize from the shadows. "I only came here because I found it by accident this morning. I didn't mean to," she swallowed hard. "And then someone came to my door last night. Told me to keep quiet. Told me not to warn anyone. Especially you." Colton froze. "Someone came to your house, who?" She shook her head frantically, her hair whipping across her face. "I can't say. I shouldn't have even told you this. They said if I talked, there'd be consequences. For me. For my little brother." He felt anger spark deep in his chest. Jace Marston was only 11. Threatening a kid was something only cowards or criminals did. "Lila, nobody threatens your family on my land. That's why I didn't want you to see it." She squeezed her eyes shut. "They said if anyone found it, they'd blame you. They said you'd face charges for interference. They said they were monitoring ranchers. They said," she bit her lip so hard it nearly bled. "They said you were already on a list." Colton stepped around her gently, ignoring her frantic attempts to stop him. "Lila, I'm not letting some anonymous suit tell you what to be afraid of." But when he got close enough to kneel beside the half-buried object, his breath caught in his throat. It was a matte black module, about 2 feet long, with beveled edges and a tiny control panel on the side. He brushed away dirt until faint lettering appeared on a silver plate. He recognized the prefix immediately. He'd seen it on a document Sheriff Mallon shared months ago in confidence equipment used for expanded regional surveillance protocols, the program that had inexplicably shut down 2 ranches in the next county over after accusations of land misuse. The program nobody in the federal office ever explained. This wasn't a coincidence. Lila crouched beside him, gripping her coat like she was holding herself together. "Colton, please." "You weren't supposed to look. They said if you saw it, everything would get worse." "Well," he murmured, "too late for that." "Colton," she hissed. "I'm serious!" He ignored her panic and leaned closer, studying a tiny indicator light pulsing faintly beneath the dust. "This thing isn't just a tracker. It's recording something. That's why I tried to cover it." Lila's voice broke. "I tried to bury it, but I was afraid someone was watching. They said they had eyes everywhere." Colton stood up slowly, the last bit of sunlight casting long shadows across his face. "This is my land. My responsibility. And whoever put this here doesn't get to lurk around, in the dark thinking they own it. Colton, Lila whispered, trembling. Don't do anything stupid. But he already knew what he was going to do. He reached into his coat pocket. Lila gasped. No, stop, don't you dare! But the phone was already in his hand. He snapped photo after photo of the device, close-ups, engravings, placement in the field, evidence, proof, something no one could deny or erase later. Lila staggered backward like the ground had dropped beneath her feet. What have you done? She whispered. Colton, they'll know. They'll know you saw it. That's the idea, he said, sliding the phone back into his coat. No, you don't understand. She pressed her hands to her head, breathing fast. They told me if anyone reported this, they'd come collect whoever found it. They said they'd bring trucks, lawyers, agents. They said they'd drag this whole ranch into an investigation. Let them come, he said simply. Her eyes filled with dread. You don't get it. They want you to fight back. They want you to lose. They want your land. Well, they're not getting it. A distant rumble rolled across the fields. Lila's head jerked toward the dirt road. Her voice shrank to a tiny, broken whisper. Colton, that's them. A black SUV was speeding toward the windmill, tires kicking up a cloud of dust behind it. Lila backed away until she hit the rusted frame of the windmill. What do we do? What do we do? Colton didn't move, didn't flinch. His jaw locked tight. We stand our ground, he said. The SUV barreled closer. Lila's hands shook uncontrollably. You shouldn't have looked, she whispered, barely audible. You really shouldn't have looked. The black SUV roared to a stop so fast the back wheels skidded sideways in the dirt, spitting gravel across the dying grass. The passenger doors flew open before the engine even finished grumbling. 3 men stepped out with the synchronized precision of people who trained for situations far beyond simple ranch disputes. Broad shoulders, blank expressions, matching dark jackets with no logos, badges, or name tags. That was what made them terrifying, people who hid. What they represented were almost always the ones with the most power to misuse it. Colton stood still, hands at his sides but tense, as though the muscles in his arms were coiled ropes. His boots stayed planted between Lila and the strangers. The wind whipped his coat around his legs, but he didn't move an inch. Willow snorted and pawed the ground nervously behind him, sensing the electric shift in the air. The front man walked forward with the slow, deliberate calm of someone who believed he already owned the conversation. His hair was clipped to military neatness, his jaw stiff. He stopped 3 feet from Colton and simply looked at him, as though measuring what kind of fight he'd have to break. Evening, Mr. Reeves, he said finally. Voice level, almost polite, but with an undertone like steel scraping stone. You're on private land, Colton replied. We're aware. Then you know you're trespassing. The man smiled faintly, the kind of smile that wasn't a smile at all. Let's not pretend jurisdiction is something you understand at this stage. Lila flinched behind Colton, wrapping her arms around herself. She kept her eyes on the ground like a scolded child. The man noticed and tilted his head slightly. Miss Marston, he said in a tone that froze the blood in her veins. You were instructed to prevent exactly this situation. I tried, she whispered, trembling. He wouldn't listen. Colton's voice sharpened. She had nothing to do with it. Don't talk to her like that. Oh, she has everything to do with it, the man said, stepping sideways enough to see Lila clearly. She was given clear instructions. Instructions she partially obeyed. Until she didn't. Fear is a wonderful motivator, Miss Marston. I suggest you remember that. The statement wasn't loud or threatening, but it crawled underneath the skin like a cold blade. Colton moved another inch in front of her. If you're trying to intimidate her, cut it out. The leader's eyes slid back to him. Mr. Reeves, you're in no position to make demands. One of the other agents kneeled by the buried device and began tapping on a tablet, murmuring numbers under his breath. The third agent positioned himself casually at an angle where he could see everyone and where a bulge beneath. His jacket sat within a quick reach. You planted that thing on my land, Colton said, his voice steady but edged with fury. I want it removed. That device, the leader replied, is part of an ongoing federal operation. One classified. The beyond your clearance. Its presence here is not your concern. It's on my dirt, Colton growled. Which makes it my concern. Is that so? The man took a step closer. Then why did you take photographs of it? Lila gasped softly behind Colton. Her hand flew to her mouth as if she'd been punched without being touched. She knew what was coming next. Colton didn't answer. He didn't need to. The man's expression flattened. Hand over the phone. No. It was not a request. Still no. The two flanking agents shifted subtly, alert now, waiting for a signal. Lila felt faint. Her breath came in shallow bursts, fogging the air as she whispered, "Colton, please. Don't do this. Just give them the pictures." Colton didn't glance back. "She doesn't get a vote in this," he said to the leader. "You dragged her into something dangerous. You threatened her brother. And you came onto my land like you own it." "Because we do," the man said. "No," Colton replied. "You don't." The leader's calm cracked just for a second. A small flash of annoyance flickered across his face before disappearing. Behind the mask again. "You're making this unnecessarily complicated," he said. "We've already had trouble with ranchers like you. Several towns over, 2 families refused to cooperate. Their land was seized. Declared unsafe, acquired." Lila whimpered, "Colton." Colton's voice deepened as anger burned through him. "You think that scares me?" "No," the man said. "I think it should." The wind went silent for a moment. Even the dry grass seemed to still, as if the entire field waited to see what Colton would do next. And then he reached into his coat again. The agents tensed instantly, hands inching toward weapons. But the object he pulled out wasn't a gun. It was a radio transmitter. He clicked it on. A soft beep pierced the air. "Sheriff?" Colton said into it loud and clear. "You hearing all this?" A burst of static answered, then Sheriff Mallon's steady voice. "Sure am, Colton." "And so is the county recorder." "Stay where you are, we're coming!" The leader's jaw flexed. For the first time since arriving, he looked uncertain. His eyes darted to the flanking agents, calculating. "This is not a matter for local law enforcement," he said. "It is now," Colton answered. Sirens wailed in the distance, faint but unmistakable. "Getting closer." The man exhaled slowly, annoyed. "Pack it up!" he barked to the agents. The one with the tablet scrambled to deactivate the device. The other stepped back toward the SUV. They moved quickly, not panicked, but rattled. Their window of power was closing fast, and they knew it. Lila stared in disbelief. "Are they leaving?" "For now," Colton murmured. The leader paused before getting into the SUV. He faced Colton one last time, his expression dark with unspoken promise. "You haven't won anything today." Colton replied, "Neither have you." The man's lips tightened, then he climbed inside. The SUV spun in the dirt and sped off, disappearing down the road just as 2 sheriff trucks barreled onto the property, lights flashing red and blue across the field. Lila's knees gave out, and she slid down the windmill's rusted frame until she sat on the dirt. Colton crouched beside her. "You okay?" he asked gently. She shook her head, tears spilling. "I thought they were going to take you. I thought—" Her voice broke. "I'm sorry, Colton. I should have told you sooner. I was so scared." "You don't apologize for being threatened," he said softly. "They used fear to control you. That's on them, not you." She looked up at him through watery eyes. "You really stood up to them. They came to the wrong ranch today," he said. "And they're going to learn that." Sheriff Mallon approached, boots pounding the dirt. "Colton!" "You all right, Lila? What happened?" Colton stood, dusting his hands off. "Sheriff, we've got something big to talk about." Lila took a shaky breath. "And it's not over," she whispered. Colton nodded, staring down the road where the SUV had vanished. "No," he said. "It's just starting."